Hey, everybody. I am Stephanie Wazalik, business coach. I help businesses, do business on their own terms in their own way. And today I have the absolutely fabulous Laura Posey, and we are going to talk about, I think, pretty much the number one problem business owners have as far as like doing things their own way, which is planning, right? It's the ultimate foundation of the whole thing. And so we are going to talk about planning your year in business, goal setting, sticking to your plan. Ultimately, I want to talk about pitfalls of planning, I think, because we have a different kind of spin on planning than I think a lot of people do, and a lot of the preconceived notions of planning. So we're not going to be like drilling smart goals or all of
Yeah.
the typical stuff here. So stay
Yeah.
tuned. I think we'll have you covered with some cool stuff today. And Laura, I before this call, I looked it up. I wanted to know when we started working together, and it was September 2018. So
Wow. Has it
more
been
than
that? Oh my gosh.
yeah, more than just over 5 years ago. I've been working on Laura's team for more than 5 years now. All we focus on is planning. And so there's no better person to talk about this today than you and me together. We gotcha.
Let's do it.
So I mean, I actually probably should have thought a little bit more specifically about where to start today. But when we talk about pitfalls of planning, I kind of asked my network and I said, what do you guys want to know about planning and goal setting? And we had kind of three scenarios come up that
Yeah.
maybe we just can work through together.
Yeah. Let's talk about them.
So I think one of the really common ones is people who like to go with the flow,
Yeah.
right? They don't plan because they live in the moment. They want to see what happens and then they'll like build. It's like that driving through the fog, right? You can
Yeah.
see what's in front of you. And we use that metaphor so often, right? Like that you just watch what's right in front of you, live in the moment. But that is like not great planning advice, right?
Right. Yeah.
So talk us through a little bit of that. Of someone who wants to be able to look
Yeah.
further out because they like intellectually know, but then they're just a more of like live in the moment kind of person.
Yeah. I think it's so much of the live in the momentness. It comes when people think about business and they think about in business planning. They're like, oh, well, I'm gonna have to get to my desk at the same time every day and do the same thing and have a list and check things off. And it's going to be really boring. And, I'm not going to have any time to go explore subjects that I'm interested in. And, if something cool comes up, I'm not going to be able to take advantage of it. And good planning isn't like that, right? It's not a straitjacket. And, I say all the time, we spend more time planning our vacation than we do planning our business that gives us the money for the vacation and the other, 48 weeks of the year. And so I think, if you think about your vacation, even if you feel like you're really a super live in the moment person, you don't just show up at the airport one day and say, hey, let me see what flights are today. And I'm just going to grab one and go someplace. And then when I get there, I'll figure out where I'm going to stay. And then, once I'm there, then I'll figure out what I'm going to go see. Um, you do some basic planning at least. You decide like, oh, I think I want to go to Costa Rica. Okay, great. And you buy a ticket to Costa Rica, right? And you decide like, where are you going to go? You don't just like show up at the airport and then decide what's going to happen next. You have some basic ideas of where you want to go, some of the types of things that you want to see, some of the things that you want to experience, the stuff that you don't like, the stuff you're like, oh no, I'm not doing any, high ropes courses or something, and monkeys scare me, so I'm not doing that. Right. You have some ideas about what you like and what you don't like and what you want to do. And planning for your business can start as basically as that. It's thinking about your business and thinking about, well, what do I really want? What do I like to do? Where do I want to go in my business? What do I want it to look like? Um, because as much as I think sometimes we get scared by them, we all have goals. We all have things that we want. We may not call them goals, using the vacation analogy, our we have a goal on our vacation to see certain things or experience certain things or feel certain emotions.
At the very least,
And
enjoy yourself along the way.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm a go with the flow kind of traveler. I totally get it. Um, you don't want to be locked in. If you see something really cool, you want to be able to be free to do that. But I think we do have to recognize that business is a little bit different because this is the entity that we have to supply all the income we want so that we can go with the flow all the rest of the time. And we don't have to be locked into, this rigid schedule. That's not what planning is about. Planning is about deciding where you want to go, what you want to experience when you get there and along the way, and making decisions about the fastest and easiest way to do that. That is the essence of planning. And I think when we can get over those mental blocks and realize that it doesn't have to be awful, it can actually be awesome. And you've probably already done it successfully. That we can make progress and okay, well, let me try this. Let me try this new way.
Yeah, and what I see with the type of planning that we teach, or just like to me, this seems like common sense, but it is not mainstream planning advice, which is to look at your entire life
Yeah.
first, right? Think sometimes we just like instantly think business, okay, it fits in this box. We're only looking at like what I do 9 to 5. But it's to me, that's not true. I think starting with your entire life and your vision for your life and your values and kind of your desires
Yeah.
and like all of that then informs even the kind of business you want to have. And so this is where our
Yeah.
overlap of like business planning on like a yearly basis really overlaps with your business model and
Yeah.
why you're in business in the first place. And I think that's such an important place to start, not just when you start your business, but every year when
Yeah.
you're planning your business.
Exactly, because it is an ongoing process because you as a human evolve and change, and your situation evolves and changes. And you want your business to be able to evolve and change with that. And just to give you an example of how planning can actually help you go with the flow. Today I got up and I have a co-working space that I like to go to, and I got up and I got dressed and I went to the co-working space and I'm all ready to go. I got my list of stuff to do, and I got there and I was just like, man, I am just tired. I had a really long weekend, a good weekend, but really long, and I've got a long drive after work today, and I thought I really just want to go take a nap. I just want to have a couple of hours at home to do nothing while the house is quiet and just chill. And because I had a plan for what I was going to do today, and I have a plan for tomorrow and the next day and all of those things, it was easy for me to take the things that I had on today's list and move them to other places so that they didn't get lost. They're still going to get done. But I could take the day off guilt free and stress free because I know that all the stuff that I was going to do today is still going to get done. It's just going to get scattered over a couple of other days. And my plan allowed me to do that. So I had a really awesome nap because I wasn't worried about anything.
And I've seen a similar, but like different, the other side of it, where people just show up to work and they have no idea what they're going to work on.
Yeah.
And so that's the go with the flow energy. I'm just gonna, sure, I can maybe have a consistent routine of showing up to work, but like, what am I even gonna work on? And then
Yeah.
what happens is they get sucked into whatever vortex of the
Yeah.
day, right? Whether it's email or social media or just like, oh, I had this idea. How about I do that? And forget about how those things fit into the bigger picture. Or you
Mhm.
certainly don't want to have to sit down at your desk and then be thinking about your whole life vision every day you start work and be like,
Yes.
oh, this day is like a problem, I gotta make it match. So having that kind of yearly plan that really helps you focus on that
Yeah.
vision, and then knowing when you I mean, there are lots of steps between the yearly
Yeah.
plan and knowing what you're going to work on every day. I'm not saying it's quite that
Yeah.
simple, but it definitely helps guide what you're going to do on a daily basis. I think you'll end up working a lot less if you have a plan that gives you more
Yeah.
time to do all the other stuff you want to go with the flow with, because you're not wasting time on things that aren't meeting your vision.
Exactly. And I find that most people, if you give them a small, manageable list of things to do, can and will get it done, especially if they know that the entire rest of their day of freedom is on the other side of it.
Hmm.
It's when you're faced with that list of 400 things that you just go, "Oh my God, I don't even want to start." And like why, why bother? It's too much. And you get overwhelmed and so you get distracted. And that's where the go with the flow comes in a lot. But when you've got a couple of things on your list that you're excited about doing, that's awesome.
I think we kind of buried the lead on this conversation, which is that the method of planning that you came up with
Yeah.
is putting your plan on one piece of paper.
Yeah.
And so, like, literally, this is the plan
Yeah.
that I follow all year, the roadmap. And I think the beauty of it being on one piece of paper is that it's like you can't box yourself in,
Right.
because it's not a detailed plan of everything that happens
Yeah.
every week for the whole year. It's like these core concepts of like,
Yeah.
here are the big rocks for,
Yeah.
for those of you who understand that metaphor, like the kind of the important things that I
Yeah.
need to do this year. And
Yeah.
then the rest of the time is more flexible. It's like more
Yeah.
adaptable to what is going on.
Yeah. If we're using our vacation metaphor again, it's sort of like, okay, I'm gonna go. Years ago, I took a trip to South Africa. And I had some basic reservations in a couple of cities, and that was it. Like, that was the entire itinerary. And and so, when I flew into Joburg, it was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna be here for 3 days." And I had a couple of things I wanted to do, but the rest of the time was open. And then I knew I was gonna go to the safari place on a certain day. And I knew, okay, once I get there, some things are gonna happen for a week. And then we're going to drive to Durban and then some things are going to happen. And
Mhm.
and so I had a plan, but there was still lots of flexibility to have some great adventures.
Mhm. I got to tell you, so I am the person who plans the trip like a bit more meticulously.
Yeah.
Unless you're no going to one place. If we're going to one place
Yeah.
and we're like, then I'm not too worried. But if it's like you're traveling, I got everything sorted out, right? And we were in Australia, Ryan and I, for a few years, and we flew to Perth. And I
Mhm.
finally agreed to have a vacation where the only thing we booked ahead was our flights. Like I finally agreed. I've never
Wow.
done that before. And you know what? We had an amazing vacation. We
Mhm.
missed our flight home by an entire day because we were just like, we lost track of the days. We ended up
Yeah.
staying somewhere an extra day. That was fun. And we just totally missed the boat on our way home. And I think for one, I was right, and planning a little more meticulously maybe would have been good. However, there's totally things we would have missed out on
Yeah.
had we planned it all. But not having a plan, like not having enough detail in my plan, like we missed our flight home. Like that's what can happen without a
Yeah.
plan in your
Yeah.
business. Like you're gonna find yourself a few years in and be like, whoa, what did I do? Like
Yeah.
I built this based on reacting to things, and this is not what I wanted for myself.
And I'm living proof. One of the reasons I started planning in the first place was because I built a business I hated with a business partner that I wanted to just throttle every single day. And I mean, I was just miserable, absolutely miserable. And it was because I just showed up and did what I knew how to do.
Hmm.
And I didn't have a plan and I didn't take time to figure out what I really wanted. And I just reacted to the things that came along. And when I flipped the script on that and really said, okay, let me start with, well, how do I really want to live? Well, I don't want to wear a suit to work every day. I don't want to have to lease an office building. I don't want to have full time employees. I don't want all this stuff that I have that I said
Mhm.
yes to. I want much more flexibility and I want much more freedom. And when I put the plan in place, I was able to get those things. And it sounds like a bit counterintuitive if you haven't experienced it. But when you have that framework, and that's what a good plan is, it's a framework, it is not a straitjacket. When you
Mhm.
have that in place, it helps you make the decisions day to day so that you're making decisions that are moving you closer to what you want instead of farther away.
Yeah, and when I started my business, I just knew I had this like vision in my head that I wanted to be able to be flexible for snow days. Like I didn't even know if I wanted kids, but I just had this vision in my head of like if school gets canceled for a snow day, will my family be able to adapt? And Ryan at the time was a geologist and like maybe would be away from home and this and that. And I just knew my career, I wanted to have a
Mhm,
career. I just knew my career needed to be adaptable in that way.
mhm.
Funny enough, I was in Australia. Nobody knew what a snow day was. So I kept talking about this vision and they had no clue what a snow day was. I had to change that part of my contract, but anyways, it was funny. But it that was the vision. So that's like the
Yeah.
big picture vision. And then every year I made a plan that was like, am I getting closer to that vision of
Mhm,
being adaptable for snow days? So I want
mhm.
to bring us to the next example,
Yeah,
which was, or the next question that came up, which was, okay, maybe I'm not resistant to planning. We're going to get back to plan
yeah.
resistance in a second, but like maybe I'm not resistant to planning, but I have trouble sticking to the plan because as I implement things, um, my goals change and or this person
Mhm,
says my goals things as things start happening,
mhm,
my goals change or I don't know what's going to happen as things start happening. So how do I
mhm.
plan for this that I don't know? I am not being articulate about this person's question, but this
Yeah. No,
you
no,
kind of
it's
get the idea, right?
yeah, again, it goes back to, having a framework. Right? And a framework is just a path. It's just a set of milestones or a set of steps. And they can be big, they can be small, they can go in whatever direction that you want to take them. They're sort of like Lego blocks, right? You can build anything you want to out of them. And it, but it's having a framework for what to be working on at what time. The thing about business is it doesn't matter really what you sell or what kind of business you have. There are basic things that have to be in place. And some things come before other things. I see it over and over that, people get all wrapped around the axle about, well, I need more leads. I need more leads, right? Because they don't have enough clients. Well, yes, leads come before clients. But in order to get good leads, you have to know who your best quality leads are, and you have to know what it is you're going to offer them. And it has to be a really good offer. And you have to have a message that conveys, hey, people, I have this really great offer that's perfect for you. And then when those things come together, then you can start doing lead generation and it's easy. And so the whole thing with the plan and getting pulled off in different directions is oftentimes just that it's not that your goals are necessarily changing, it's that something has come along that looks really awesome in the moment and some really clever marketer has made it sound like you can only have it now.
Hmm.
And oh my god, this is the most important thing for you to do in your world. Like, oh my gosh, if you don't learn how to use AI this minute, you're never going to be a success. And and you get wrapped up in this and you're like, "Oh, well, I need to go do that." And I need to go take this course on AI or I need to learn this or I need to learn this thing. And instead of just following that core process of these are the steps to building and growing a business, so that it's not often that the goals change. You still want to make the amount of money that you want to make. You still want to have the freedom that you want to have. It's that the path changes. And it's usually that the path changes because somebody else has said, oh, by the way, this is the best path. And that's where your plan can pull you back and give you that pause where you say, hey, wait a minute. when I sat down and thought about my ideal business, there was nothing in it about AI. There was these things that I want to do and the things that I want to put in place and the ways that I want to serve my clients. And this is just a tactic. This is just kind of a shiny object. And let me just go back and do what was in my plan because the AI thing is always going to be there. And it'll be different, but it's always going to be there. And so let me just do the stuff I plan to do first and get that in place. And then when I'm doing my next plan, I can go do that shiny thing. So I think it's important to understand and check yourself and say, have my goals changed? Has the place that I want to go changed?
And we're
Or am
defining
I just
goals as those like the money markers, the time
yes,
markers, the freedom
yes,
markers.
exactly. Or am I just getting distracted by shiny tactics?
Yeah.
And that is usually the case. It's rare that, unless there's some massive change in like your family structure, that's usually the biggest thing that changes goals, right? You or someone you in your family has a major illness or a major life shift that can, you have a kid, right? That can change your goals, but otherwise it's usually just a really good marketer convincing you there's that if you don't do this thing with
Mhm.
them right now, that all will be lost.
Well, and I don't know if you know this, maybe we need to add this to our plan, but I put a next year box at the bottom in my margin.
Oh,
And so when there's a shiny object that comes up,
mhm.
or I'm like, hey, I got to investigate that further. Maybe this would help. I just put it in the next year because I want to be thinking about it for next year. It's funny though, how many of
Yeah,
these things that I'm like, I'm not freaking doing that. What was I thinking? Like, I'm going to be scratching them
yeah,
off and just
yeah,
putting them in the next year box. And like a few months later, being
yeah,
like, oh, thank goodness I didn't start doing that. Like I've no, that doesn't make any sense.
yeah,
But I also I think this is interesting too, of like, again, the goals don't change, but how you get to those goals, there's some flexibility,
yeah,
but we still want to go kind of do things in order. Don't put the cart before the horse.
yeah,
But I think like this person who asked this question, like let's say they do a workshop or
mhm,
something and they get a whole bunch of like opportunities that come from it. Maybe
mhm,
somebody else is like, hey, do the workshop for me. Like, this is the kind of person that like the
yeah,
ball will start rolling for,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
What I think is so cool about having a plan is that when it's not even just shiny objects from marketers, but like
yeah,
opportunities can start coming
yeah,
your way, right?
yeah,
Opportunities like, oh, this looks cool. This looks cool. Oh, I want to say yes to that. I want to say yes to that. The cool thing about a plan is it then can filter those opportunities.
exactly. Yes, that's it. Another great look at it because the whole purpose of a plan is to help you decide. And the root of the word decide means to cut out or cut away. And so a plan helps you decide, what do I say yes to and what do I say no to? Because there's just only so much time and attention that you want to deliver, that you want to give to your business. And so when you know how you want to work, then you can say, okay, well, here are the number of hours that I want to commit to this business in exchange for this amount of money. And so what opportunities do I really want to explore? And which ones are going to be a really great fit for me and which ones aren't? And when you understand it from the lifestyle perspective and not just the money perspective, because there are lots of times that people come and dangle a big check in front of you, and it's just like, whoa, that's a lot of money. I think I want to do that. And then if you stop for a second and check your lifestyle design and go, does that really fit in? Like somebody asked me the other day, there's a group that I do some work with, and they have a new UK contingent. And somebody said, oh, would you want to work with the UK group? And I thought about it for a second. I was like, yeah, no. Um, 'cause my first instinct was like, oh, cool, going to the UK every quarter, working with some new folks, travel. Yeah, yeah. And then I started to think about it and I'm like, well, wait a minute. That's I've done this before. This is a whole day on an airplane and then time zone shifts. And then just about the time I'm getting used to that time zone, I got a whole nother day home on a plane, and it's work travel. It's not like I'm going to be there doing a whole lot of fun stuff. And that means I'm going to be away from my family 4 days at least. And then I'm going to want to sleep a whole day when I get back because I've got jet lag. And I started to think about it and was like, yeah, no, actually, it doesn't sound like fun. Can we do it
Yeah.
on Zoom? Right?
Well,
Um,
and one of the first things I say to new opportunities is like, and just so you know, I don't work Fridays. And
yeah,
if they have something they need me to do on a Friday, it's a no. It's a
yeah,
solid no. We don't do our webinars on Fridays anymore because I told you I'm not doing them on Fridays.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. And I think that that's such a cool part about having a plan for how you want to work.
yeah.
I've been going to see my dad a lot lately, and so it's been really cool to be able to just juggle things and move things around so that I can go spend 2 or 3 days a week with him and be fully present and not have to be pulled between different opportunities.
Mhm.
And again, it goes back to just having that plan and going like, yeah, this is important to me.
it, I don't know if this is a digression or not. We don't have to stay a long time here, but I just think it's so cool to think about your business. A lot of the business owners that come to me are kind of like the working out in the world businesses, right? A
Hmm.
interior designer, a chef, a
Yep.
like massage therapist, right? Like, and they learn business as like a box of like, this is
Hmm.
how I do my profession, right?
Yeah.
And they go out there and they start to realize that the way that the mainstream does their profession just
Hmm.
doesn't work for them. Like they
Yeah.
want that flexibility. They don't want to work evenings, or they want to
Yeah.
do their work in a certain way that fulfills them, or they have um different neurodiversities of that
Yeah.
just make their work more interesting in different ways. And so I find that so interesting because I think a lot of those kinds of businesses don't have plans. They just like go to work and they do their work in a certain
Yeah.
way. But when they find out that that work isn't working for them, and not all
Yeah.
of them find that out, a lot of them just keep going and it works fine. But when they find out that it doesn't work for them, then we need to go back and look at a plan. We need to look at that lifestyle. We need to
Yeah.
look at what are the real goals. What do you want out of your career and your work and your business? And how can we restructure that business in a way that works better for you? And it starts with a plan, whether it's with us or someone else. It's super important to reassess it from like the very beginning.
Yeah. And I think we toss around a lot of words like work and business and it's like, are those the same thing? And I think of them as sort of, I don't know, I think of them differently. Like I own my own business, but I think of myself not just as the owner of the business, but I have a job in this business. And so I start with, well, what kind of business do I want to work for? What kind of company do I want to work for? And what is that company's plan? Like I would never go if I were going to go out and get a job in somebody else's company. I would want to know like, well, what are you guys trying to accomplish here?
Hmm.
What are your core values? Like what kind of place is this?
That's such a good way of putting it. Like it can be too, yeah,
Yeah,
even though we're the same person, the owner and the
right.
worker, we're the same
Yeah.
person in a lot of cases. We're not always. A lot of us have
Yeah.
team members, but yeah,
Yeah, so it's like I've
beautiful.
got this company, that's the business. And then I've got this job within the company. And sometimes it's multiple jobs. And it's like, oh, well, if I were going to go work for somebody else, well, how would I design my job? What's my work week look like? What kind of flexibility do I want? I mean, I've
Yeah.
worked in corporations, and to this day, I have never filled out whatever it is you're supposed to do to take vacation because it drives me crazy that I was supposed to fill out a form or go on a website or something to tell people I wasn't gonna be there, and I'm like, "I'm just gonna take vacation." And so I would just, like, tell whoever I was working, like, "I'm gonna be on vacation next week," and they'd be like, "Oh, okay." And nobody ever asked me. I don't know, because I never got caught. So I don't wanna have a job where I have to, apply to take time off. And so I think, as you're designing your business, just, think about what is the business? What is the company, and what kind of company do you want to work for? And then what kind of role and job do you want to have within that company? And that can help you treat it like a real business and like a real job, instead of, just showing up and going, wow, what are we going to do today?
Yeah. Let's talk about SMART goals for a second. As I was kind of thinking about this call, I was thinking about, I mean, how many times I've been given the advice to do SMART goals. I couldn't even tell you what the acronym stands for at this point, like specific,
Specific,
measurable,
measurable, achievable, realistically high, or something like that,
and then
and
time
time bound.
bound. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so turns out we could think of them, but I always found with SMART goals that I had to like predict the future.
Hmm.
And I have never felt that way when I'm planning with you. And I'm just curious how I've not really thought about this before, but I'm just curious how you think about them differently, how you think about SMART goals and how you think that they differ from the kind of planning we talk about.
Yeah. So SMART goals stress me out.
Me too. 100%.
Um, yeah, it just, there's something about the time bound piece, and they just feel really rigid, and I don't they I don't want to be stressed all the time. I don't I've read something a long time ago, and this, the problem with, things like goals and SMART goals is that until the moment that you achieve them, you're behind. Like, you
Hmm.
starting out the year behind. Oh, I'm behind. I'm behind. I'm not at my goal. I'm not at my goal. And I'm like, yeah, that sucks. I don't enjoy that feeling. So what I like to choose is more of a destination. To me, it's not, I'm not trying to, the goal is not the end. It's just a milestone on the journey. And so, to me, it's like, if I'm taking a road trip, like, okay, I want to be generally around, this place at this time. But stuff can come up. It could be there's like a really cool roadside stand and with fresh vegetables, and I'm gonna pull over there and buy some stuff, right? Or, you get stuck in traffic, or sometimes there's an express lane and you make up some time. Um, and so to me, it's more of a direction, it's a milestone. So I like to look at my business goals and say, how much money do I want to be earning by the end of this year? So it's not necessarily the accumulation of money during the year. It's, sort of what's my new norm at the end of the year. And I want to think about, how much time do I want to have available to just that's planned, that I can just go like, look, I ain't gonna be here in July because I got places I want to go and stuff that I want to do. And, so I want to think about those things. And, I'll start out the year and go, yeah, I think I probably want to take about 6 weeks of vacation this year. And I may not know where I'm going to go or exactly when I'm going to go, but 6 weeks seems like a really nice amount of time to just be someplace else. And so I don't like the rigidity of SMART goals. I like to think more along the lines of destinations and milestones. Um, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Yeah. Well, that's my take too. I just think about now that I'm thinking about it, I think when you set SMART goals, a lot of times they want you to have like five,
Oh
right?
gosh, yeah.
Like you're gonna have a goal for this and a goal for that and a goal for this. And what I like that what's stressful about that is like number one, tracking all of those things. It's wild. And I had never thought about that, the feeling of being behind always, which is actually the third question we had. So it's a good lead in. And I just never knew what I was gonna like. I felt like I had to predict, like have this
Yeah.
crystal ball, right? As opposed to I like this idea of the feeling, like what's my new norm when
Hmm.
I get there. And I know, even whatever's on my plan, I never expect it's going to be like exactly that number. I always
Yeah.
put a little plus sign next to it. And
Yeah.
so it's like this or more would be great,
Yeah.
because to kind of give it that flexibility. But
Yeah.
that, so the third person that responded when I asked kind of what comes up, this is the gist of what they said. They hate planning. They get swallowed up by having the perfect plan, like the perfectionism and all of
Mhm.
that. But that also leaves them some flexibility. So like finding that balance is
Mhm.
super hard. They may completely forget about the plan and then a few months later
Yeah.
make a new one. Or if they are rigidly trying to follow the plan that they've made, it just stresses them out on a daily basis. Like you
Yeah.
said, like always kind
Yeah.
of feeling behind, overwhelmed, frustrated, ashamed. The more specific they get, they said they feel more guaranteed to fail.
Yeah.
Something that like kind of works for them is like reverse doing it, like starting at zero and
Mhm.
then like, oh, I've achieved this and achieved this and
Yeah.
achieved this and like kind of
Yeah.
gamifying it in that way because then you feel
Yeah.
like you're accomplishing something.
Yeah.
But I also want to add too, like again, that not being neurotypical, right? Having some
Mhm.
ADHD tendencies or some autistic tendencies and like
Mhm.
just like this is a lot of questions all in one, but I think it goes back to that feeling behind, like that
Yeah.
anxiety and
Yeah.
frustration and like trying to stick to it so rigidly. But
Yeah.
like let's just riff on that for a second.
Yeah. I mean, I think any good plan has some slack in it because we can't predict the future. We know. I mean, you know, pandemic is a great example. I flew to Australia on March 15th of 2020, which is a really leaving the country.
I
I was
still
supposed to
remember
come
that.
back
Oh my
3 weeks
gosh.
later. I came back 3 months later because I
Yeah.
could not get back. I guarantee you, like, I can go pull that plan. I did not have be in Australia for 3 months because of global pandemic in my plan, right? But there was enough slack and enough flexibility to be able to adapt to those things. And so a good plan, you have a destination, you have a direction that you're going, you have some milestones, you have some structure and some idea about, where you're going to stop along the way and the things that you're going to do. But it's not locked into you must do this thing on this day because we're human beings and stuff happens. We get sick, our kids get sick, somebody else in the family needs us. Life happens. Some days, like today, it just don't feel like working. And so you have to have some slack in your plan to be able to flex with those things. I wouldn't have been able to take the things that were on my list today and move them to other days if all those days were already filled to the brim. There's got to be that little bit of flex. And I think when we put plans in place that have enough structure to keep us focused and keep us moving forward, but that have enough slack to allow us some movement and to adapt and adjust to daily life and snow days.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the magic happens because you feel that sense of progress and you feel like you're winning and you feel like you're moving forward because you are. And because you don't have this, like, I have to hit this thing by this date, you don't feel behind. You're focused on the forward progress and not that like you're arriving late.
Yeah. And we could do a whole separate call on dopamine and checking things off the list and
Yeah.
how cool that
Yeah.
feels um and how I mean I think our goal, certainly mine, and I think our kind of um what we like to help people with is finishing their plan, what's on their plan early.
Yeah.
Right? Like we don't want so
Yeah.
much on the plan that that you're going to fail. We want to
Yeah.
have those wins along the way with a
Yeah.
plan, and I think that makes for a good plan too.
Yeah.
We only give people like a certain number of spaces so they can't
Yeah.
overfill their plan. And And I just think there's serious magic in that. And I fill those spaces with like time off. And
Yeah.
this month I'm going to buy a new computer. So I put like learn new computer. I'm finally going to get a
Yeah.
Mac. So it's, yeah, that's the cool thing about thinking of your year as a whole.
Yeah.
So
And you feel, I think, I mean, at least for me, putting things down on paper, it gets it out of my head. And so I don't have to remember it. I don't have to juggle it around. I don't have to wonder where I am. It's right there and I can just look at it. And so if I sit down and I go, well, what the hell am I supposed to do today? I can look over and it's like, oh, I'm doing that. Cool.
mhm.
I don't have to worry about it.
And we, again, we're not saying that you only have a yearly plan. Like we look at our
Yeah.
plans quarterly and monthly and weekly and even daily, right? There are
Yep.
some steps that we haven't covered today, which is
Yeah.
fine. We're talking about the pitfalls of planning. But I just, as we kind of wrap up, because we could talk about this forever, and we do talk about this forever. As we wrap up, though, I'm very passionate about giving people permission to do things their way. And the
Yes.
framework that we think makes a great plan is not about like, here is your plan for your business. Like people are building their own plans based on
Yes.
their own vision and their own
Yes.
goals. And I just want to kind of end. You had a great example of someone who really felt that this gave them the permission and the freedom they wanted. No?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sorry. I was talking to a guy the other day. Yeah. And he's just really cool guy. And he said, you know, he said, I've tried planning and I've never succeeded. And I've always felt like really restricted and stressed out. And he said, there's your plan. It gives me permission to not be perfect. And it gives me permission to do it the way I want to do it and not feel like I have to model exactly what somebody else is doing that doesn't fit for me. And, we got to talking about like, yeah, it's like, you know, trying to wear somebody else's shoes. Like, even if they're your size, they're not your shoes. And you can tell as soon as you put them on, like, these are not my shoes. I do not want, this doesn't fit. And, so, yeah, it just, I love it when I get to hear from folks that are using the frameworks and the tools that we put in place and they get it. Like it makes them feel better and it helps them be more productive. And ultimately, the productivity is just so they can get all the work done and make the money they want so that they can go have a hell of a lot of fun in the rest of their life. I mean, I hope you're having fun doing work too. But, let's face it, if most of us stopped getting paid, we'd stop showing up. Right? I mean, let's be real. We do it for the money.
Yeah. Yeah. So I said that was going to be the end, but I realized we should probably give people some actionable steps.
Ah,
So
okay.
again, not every step to make a plan, but like what are a
Yeah.
couple actionable things that people
Yeah.
can do to take what we've talked about today and make it concrete for them?
Yeah. I think some of the things are, start with the lifestyle design. Like, you know, if you sat down and just thought about, people say, what's your ideal day? I'm like, I don't know. They're all different. Right. But think about some of the things that you really want to have in your life, what kind of house do you want to live in? What kind of vacations do you want to take? What kind of hobbies do you want to engage in? How do you want to engage with your family and your friends and your hobbies? And eh, figure out, take a look at that and say, well, how much money do I think I really need to have those things? And how much free time do I really need to have those things? And then look at that and say, okay, well, how big does my business need to be? And how much time off do I need to have those things? And then start looking at, okay, well, what are the things in my business? What has to change in my business if I'm going to get there? Right? And sometimes well, I need more clients. Well, maybe you need more clients. Maybe you just need to charge more. Right? There are lots of different ways to make the money. So what needs to change or what could change that would get you where you want to go? Sometimes the changes are around the time. So start looking at what am I doing that's not actually generating results, that's not generating income in my business, and do I really need to do it? Paying your taxes does not generate income, but yes, you need to do it. Um, but there are lots of other things that we spend time on that don't create money for us. Um, so I would start just at that general level. And even that level of thinking is going to start to change the way you look at what you're doing in your business on a daily basis, and helping you understand, am I moving forward, or am I sitting still, or am I even going backwards and working against what I really want?
Hmm. Yeah, and as we're coming up to the end of the year, I know a lot of people will be using this time for planning, or they'll be hiding under a rock, avoiding this entire part of their business. But I really like the not now or the next year list,
Yes.
to just start to think about, like, even just to, put a little post-it on your desk and
Yeah.
think about, like, what do I want to be doing next year, and
Yeah.
what could that look like? Give yourself some time to vet those ideas instead of just, planning 1 hour and then assuming you're gonna get your whole business figured out in 1 hour on January 2nd or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'd love to say that the first time you do it, that's all the time that it takes. But when you when you have a good framework and you're doing a good plan, it takes a little bit of time, but it's actually enjoyable
I
because
love
you're
it. I love
you're
it.
living, yeah, you're
Yeah.
you're living in that mental space of having and doing all of the things that you want,
Mhm.
and your creative juices are flowing for how you can get them.
Yeah.
And it's a really exciting and fun process when it's got the right amount of structure and flexibility.
Hmm. Okay, so final things. We always do webinars at the end of the year, some
Yep.
workshops about how to plan your year on one sheet of paper.
Yep.
They'll be coming up the last 2 weeks, not the last two
Yep.
weeks of December, the last two
First
weeks
one is
before the
December
holidays.
12th and the last one is December 22nd.
Yeah,
21st.
21st, I think. So
Yep.
so
Yep.
in there, and in those, we will be talking about how to plan your year on one sheet of
Yep.
paper. I think we're going to be talking about the success circle, right? Kind of
Yep.
the
We're going to talk
order to
about the
do
success circle.
things.
Yep. Yep. And we're actually going to
Um,
be able to get down more into like what do you put on that piece of paper? We'll have time to go into a little more detail.
Right. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel with this conversation today because
Yeah.
I know we're going to point people in that direction. So, since neither Laura or I have the links to that right now, I'm going to put them below, beside, wherever. It's going to be somewhere around this video. So when this video goes live, those links will be accurate and live as well. And so hopefully we'll see you on those workshops. I'll be there with
I'll be
Laura.
there.
Just say hi, and yeah, we'll be there to talk more about planning. And it's a good foray if you're the kind of person who really does resist planning. It's a
Yeah.
good way to get introduced to the framework about
Mhm.
how it can help you. And we'll talk about how we can help you create your plan for 2024 as
Yeah.
well. So you'll get all of that information there. Anything else you want to share, Laura?
Um, no, I think there's so much
I
I don't
know
want to
there's too
open the
much.
floodgates again.
There's
So
too
yeah,
much.
I
Nope.
just thanks for having me. I always enjoy our conversations because we have such a great time and riffing off each other.
Yeah, I can't believe we haven't recorded one of these before. I'm so glad we did today. And if
Yeah.
you want to see future videos or blog posts, articles, all the resources that I share, just head over to stephaniewazlik.com/permission. You'll get my permission slips to your inbox most weeks. Not this week, because it was one of those snow days, PD days. These things happen. So, all right. Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.